In the last video, we connected to the database with this include a file called connect.php, which is in the underscore includes folder. And let's go take a look at that. Let's go to underscore includes, and in connect.php is where we have our connect code. Now notice we don't have a closing PHP tag. We don't need a closing PHP tag unless we want to separate it from HTML. So this code right here is included in our HTML. So you notice that in our HTML we do have a closing PHP tag. And that's because we need to separate our PHP from our HTML. Now we could have written all of our connect code right here where we included it, but it's more appropriate to include it in a file. So up above this, I'm going to create a comment. This is where we connect to the database. Okay, so down below, I'm going to create another comment. And this is where we are going to create a record. The C in CRUD stands for create. So we need to create a record because if you look in our PHP myadmin, we have this table of food, but it has no records in it. So we want to create the record with PHP. So in the code, inside the PHP tags, we say if is set. And it has to be $_post in caps. Okay, in brackets and in quotes, submit. And we're going to do something. We're going to perform an action. So let's go to look at the form, because we have this attribute in the form. It's called action. So let's find a form. So down in the HTML, we find a form with an ID of createF. Now the action, I'm going to change that to mills.php. That's the file we are on right now. And that is because this is where our PHP will be at the top of the page. So now let's go down and look at our submit. We find our submit right here. But we need to get the name, and that is add new. The value is what the button says on the form. So we need to go back to the PHP block up at the top and change submit to add new. So when we click the submit button with the name of add new, we're going to set the post of that form and we're going to echo good. So let's see how that works. Okay, go to the form. So I'm going to open up the add form and click submit, and there it is. We get good. So we're doing good. So now instead, let's go take all that echo off and let's declare a variable. It's a query, $add_Q. That's a query. Now we're going to set it equal to double quotes, and inside those double quotes we're going to write insert in caps into caps and food. Now this is structured query language, and I use all caps to indicate the keywords and the small letters to indicate things that I made. So for example, this food, that's the table in the database that we are connected to. So what we need to do is we want to insert into food. We need to declare the field names that we want to insert into. And then we need to put those in parentheses, and then we need to submit the values, and those will go into parentheses. Okay, so now we need to declare some variables. We need to get the names of our inputs. So let's go back to the form. So notice that the method is post. So when we submit the form, it will be a post submit, and we're going to get the names of our inputs. So each of our inputs has a name attribute. So we have name equals name, name equals carbs, name equals fat, name equals protein, name equals sodium. So let's go up to the PHP code up at top and declare some variables. We need to declare a variable for each of our fields in our food table that we want to add to the table. So let's go take a look at that table in phpMyAdmin. So we need to add carbs, but wait a minute. What about the name? I forgot to add the name. So what I'm going to have to do now is add a field to this table. So if we go down here and look, we can see add one column after sodium, but no, I don't want to do it after sodium. I want to do it after ID. Okay, so I click go, and that's going to be, the name of it's going to be name, and I'm going to make it a variable character, set it to 50. Okay, click save. Okay, so let's go and browse. Now we have name. Now I want to do one more. I want to do it after protein. So click protein, go. This is going to be sum. It's going to be the sum of the protein, fat, and carbs in the calories. So I'm going to set that to 5. So now we have all of our fields in there. We can start creating our variables in our PHP code. So let's go back to the PHP code. Let's declare a variable called name, set it equal to MySQL real escape string connection as a parameter, and then post and its name. Okay, semicolon. Now, that something's wrong. This should not look like that. We have to figure out, okay, here it is. That should be escape. Okay, now here we go. So what this is a function that escapes all bad characters. We'll talk more about preventing SQL injection later. But for right now, let's go ahead and declare those other variables. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it a couple times below. Okay, so we need one for carbs. Copy that, paste it. Fat. Protein. Some. Now I'm not going to change that for now. I'm going to change that in a minute. We need cholesterol, if I spelled that right. And then we need sodium. Okay, so now for the sum, that's going to be equal to carbs plus fat plus protein. But here's the thing is that I want to be able to add these values in as grams and store them as calories. That's because on the labels, you'll see that we see grams a lot. On food labels, you're always going to see grams. But people really think better in calories because we know how many calories we have to burn when we exercise. So before we submit our sum to the database or for any of our calories to the database, we have to convert from grams to calories. So let's do that right now. So right up here underneath my carbs variable, I'm going to declare it again saying $carbs. Now carbs, there's 4 calories in per gram of carbs. So I'm going to type carbs times 4. So that's going to be our new value for carbs. So we're going to do the same thing with fat and protein. But fat equals 9 calories per gram. So in fat times 9, protein equals 4 calories per gram. Okay, so now we can add them as grams but store them as calories. That's more convenient. So the next thing we need to do is go down here and inside of our insert query, in the first parentheses right after our food, which is the table, we need to add the fields in that table that we want to insert into. So we need to have name. We have to separate these with commas. Carbs, comma, fat, comma, protein, comma, some, comma, cholesterol, comma, and then sodium. Now inside the values parentheses, we have to put quotation marks. We need to get all of our variables with the $sign and put them inside quotation marks separated by commas. So what I'm going to do is just copy this and do some pasting again. So this has to be carbs, fat, protein, some cholesterol, and sodium. Okay. So now we need to create another variable called result, set it equal to this function. Okay, we need the connection and we need the query. I'm going to change that capital A to small a. Now this or die, gives us a warning in case we have an error. Gives us an idea of what our error is. And we need the connection and end it with a semicolon. So this function, MySQLi query, takes two parameters. The connection, that's the variable that connected us to the database in our connect.php. The second one is the query itself. Now, you notice that I took the capital A off and made it a small a, so this always has to be equal to this. This code runs only if we get an error. So let's try our query out by adding a record to the database. So let's go to the browser, refresh. I'm going to click the add button and enter. I'm just going to scribble anything in there. This is just a test. I got to give the carbs and everything some numbers. Hope this works. Click the submit button, add new. And no, it does not work. So let's take a look at our errors. We got to notice use of undefined constant protein. That's on line 24. Okay, our next one is cholesterol, and it's on line 26. And then we have error inserting into database, unknown column, cholesterol in field list. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening there. So let's go back to the code and look in line, first of all, it's line 24. I got to add the $sign in front of protein. Our next error says undefined index cholesterol, and then we see error inserting into database unknown column cholesterol in field list. So that's what we wrote. I don't think there's a cholesterol. I think I misspelled that. That's that word cholesterol I have a hard time spelling. So let's go and look in the phpMyAdmin. So I want to make sure what I'm spelling in the database is accurate. So I'm going to go over here and click change and copy this. I need to make sure this is exactly what's in the code. I'm going to go back to the code, right? And I'm going to paste it right here. But actually I'm going to do a find on this, a search on this, a replace. And down here I'm going to replace the good stuff, and everywhere I have the bad spelling I'm going to replace it. And down here in the HTML, I need to change my inputs to cholesterol, spelled right. But I need to make that a capital and that a capital. Okay, so let's try it now. So I'll refresh the page and then click add and just enter any kind of fake record just to see if this works. Give all of them numbers. I'm going to do a lot of testing. Click submit, add new. And let's check it out in the PHP. I'm going to refresh. And we have our new record. Okay. Now the numbers I entered into the inputs was 20. So we have carbs. Now we have 80. That's 20 times 4. We have 180 calories for fat. That's 20 times 9. Same thing with protein, 20 times 4. Those all sum up to 340, right? So our math is good. So we just created a record. That's the C in CRUD. In the next video, we're going to start creating records and displaying them as we are creating them in a HTML table. So I hope you learned something in this, and I hope to see you in the next movie. Thanks for watching, and please share this video.